Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ed Barton. I'm a former social anxiety sufferer, and today I want to talk about how your parents and your family may be contributing to your social anxiety. So today I just want to give a little bit of information about my own personal situation in the hope that it's something that you can relate to and will maybe give you something to reflect on. Now, this can be a really tricky subject because we don't like to think, or maybe we don't even ever imagine, that the people who are supposed to be closest to us could actually be harming us or damaging us. And this is maybe inadvertently or unconscious, but it can very often be the case. Now, in my own situation, it took me a long time to realize that the people around me and my family were actually really contributing to my social anxiety. I had a father who is a covert, passive-aggressive narcissist, which is a bit of a mouthful, but I'll explain that later on. And I had a mum who has OCD personality disorder. And I also had a brother who was bullying me, and what I later found out in life was that he was actually very jealous of me, and by his own admission, he actually wanted me dead while I was growing up. Those are his words. And I was absorbing all of that negative energy from these three people in my house. So it was kind of no wonder that I was low on self-esteem, low on self-confidence, and was exhibiting a lot of dysfunctional thinking and behavior. So in my own situation, as I said, I had a dad who was covert, passive-aggressive narcissist. Now, what this means is that instead of being an overt narcissist, kind of life and soul of the party, blah, 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 I'm very confident, he was actually low on self-confidence, but he came across as very confident. And what he would do with the passive-aggressive part of his personality disorder is that he would always be very subtly undermining your achievements and stuff like that, or pretending that he hadn't seen it, or forgetting to pick up an award that you had won, or somehow subtly undermining you. Now, it's not the object of this video to rip my dad apart, but I want to bring these things up in the hope that maybe it resonates with some of you guys and it might give you something to reflect on. So aside from having a passive-aggressive father like this, I had a mother who was very strict, has OCD personality disorder, very focused on lists, unable to display warm and spontaneous emotion. It's all very mechanical, all comes through very formalized kind of displays of emotion. So my psycho-emotional development was not very healthy. I didn't receive normal maternal love. Then I had a father figure who actually was covertly, in a hidden way, competing with me and trying to undermine me. So what happened there is I actually internalized self-sabotage behavior, and that came through with my social anxiety. And if I was having a nice interaction, there would be a voice in my head be like, go on, do something weird or say something awkward, or let's just mess up this whole interaction because it's going too well. So I internalized my father's sabotaging voice, and that was a major battle and a major part of me overcoming social anxiety, was to overcome this inner saboteur and to develop this self-esteem. And then the final piece of the puzzle for me was having this kind of very angry, also competitive brother who was jealous of me and used to bully me physically and verbally and mentally. So growing up through my formative years, I had these three forces acting on me and kind of shaping and retarding my development in a lot of ways. And it wasn't until much later on in my 30s that I actually realized this and understood this. As I said, this is not a video to character assassinate my family members. I'm kind of bringing this stuff up in the hope that it might give you some food for thought and think, well, maybe there's some dynamics going on at home that might be undermining my development, or maybe there's stuff where people at home or people that are close to me aren't acting in my best interest, even though they say they are. In my experience, my dad, well, no, I didn't mean anything by that. I was just playing devil's advocate. I was just saying, what if you go and make a total fool of yourself? But I don't mean anything like that. So it can be done in a very subtle way. It can be a very subtle form of psychological abuse within the family. So then that begs the question, if you do think that there's abuse from family members which is damaging you, and contributing to your SAD. What do you do about it? And I have a few ideas based on my own experience, and it's up to you to decide how appropriate you think these might be for you. But in my experience of dealing with a narcissist, I had to basically go no contact for much of my life. And I noticed the proof was in the pudding. The longer I spent away from my family and the further I was geographically and emotionally, the better I did in life. So I always tried to put a lot of distance between myself and them. I lived in China for 10 years and tried to speak to them very little, and I really thrived. And then when I came back to England and was around them, things started to go wrong. So I started to realize that there's something going on there. So you may want to go no contact, which means, no phone calls, no contact whatsoever. See how that works. If you do feel you still want to have contact with abusive parents or family members, I would recommend putting in very firm boundaries. My dad would always try to bombard my phone, even if I said I didn't want to take calls. So I wouldn't answer the phone. I wouldn't answer WhatsApp messages. I would block him on WhatsApp. I would only communicate via email as and when I wanted to. I didn't reply to his emails. It would be on my terms. So I tried to put down very firm boundaries. I wouldn't go over to their house. I still don't. I meet them somewhere neutral, like a coffee shop, or they can come to my place, but not inside. I don't let them inside the place because I know that my dad will start sniffing around for clues that what I'm up to. Even with my YouTube channel, the first video I filmed, I showed him and he tried to sabotage it. And my mum just criticized me. She said, "You move your hands too much." And my dad said, "No one's going to watch you because you come across too confident. They won't believe that you've had the problems that you've had." So case in point, I recommend putting down firm boundaries and not letting them in to your space physically or mentally, because they may try and undermine you. So that's a brief synopsis of my experience with abusive parents and family members. I do feel it's very important. It has a massive impact. I know for me it was a very subtle and undermining form of psychological abuse, and I've done so much better when I've been able to cut those people out of my life or distance myself from them in a healthy way. So I hope that this will give you some food for thought. Maybe reflect on it. It can be very uncomfortable to shine an honest light on the situation and think, well, maybe my dad is competing with me, or maybe my mum is always criticizing me or doesn't have my best interest at heart. And as I said, it's often not conscious. They won't even know that they're doing it. But I do think it's worth analyzing. If you've got SAD, it didn't occur in a vacuum. There's a good chance that there's some sort of dysfunction in your psycho-emotional development, and that's likely come from the family setting first and foremost. So I hope this video might prompt you to have a little look at that, have a think about that. As always, I would love to hear from you, so leave your comments in the section below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, as it helps me to help more people with social anxiety.